Alright, this is not so much an update video as it is just me showing off something really fucking stupid. I kind of find this to be amazing. So, let me explain what this is. There's a thing I want to do in BA3 that should not be that difficult, but it's causing me a lot of problems. Here's the editor, and let me explain what I'm trying to do. So on this screen, there's a few screens like this. There's this one, there's this one over here, there's one over here, where there's a sign basically, and the idea is you go up to the sign and you read the text on it and you leave. I've had plenty of things like this before. If you don't understand the limitations of older Zelda Classic versions, then you may not be aware there's not really a thing as a sign that you can read. It's kind of like for instance, there's one here where there's like a sign, but when you go up to it, what it's really doing is there's like stairs or a pit in front of it, takes you to a different screen, displays the text, and you go back. It's not really complicated, but it doesn't work the way that you might think it does. The thing that I want to do here, and the thing that really should not be causing me so much grief, is I want to have it so you go up to the sign, and the first time you do this, you actually trigger a cutscene, but then any time that you do it after that, you just read the sign. And that is surprisingly difficult to do. I've come up with a way to do it, but it's very, very stupid, and it only works about 80% of the time. And I'm going to be showing that here. So, I'm going to change some stuff in the editor right now just so you can see what this looks like, because it's hard to explain. So this is like the intermediate screen where it just kind of shows you looking at the sign, but you're not actually doing it yet, and I'll explain more about this screen in a minute. I'm going to make these layers transparent so you can see the inner workings a little bit. You'll be able to see this when I actually play the game in a second here. So let's go into the game and test this out. I also made this little intro sequence when you enter the field for the first time. I think it's kind of cool. This wasn't here the last time that I showed the game off. Every time I test this, I have to put on cheats to walk past this thing, by the way. It's pretty good. I also made that mini-map in the top left. That took me longer than I'd like to admit. So, let's go over to the sign, and I'm going to be freezing the game to show what's going on, because it's very hard to explain. So, the tile right in front of me is a staircase. Let's go onto this, and I'm going to be playing this frame by frame. When you go here, here's what's happening. The Bargo in the bottom left is the one that's actually drawn onto the screen. It's not like the real character. The one in the top right is the actual, like, Link player character. So you spawn in the middle of a bunch of boulders, and you can't move. After a couple frames, it spawns in an invisible NPC that doesn't tell you anything. Like, there's no text or anything, but it's a money or life room. The one where you have to either pay a heart container or pay a certain amount of money to pass. And you are spawned on top of the thing that lets you pay money, and I have it set to 0. So you're actually paying 0 rupees to meet the condition of the room, and you meet it as soon as this loads in because you're standing in the correct place. So basically, what that does is it causes the NPC to despawn, because there's certain types of, like, the program calls them guys, but, like, there's certain types of them that will always stay there and certain ones that will leave. So, like, if you go into a screen where it's, like, congrats on finding me, here's 30 rupees, like, that, when you get the rupees, the guy doesn't actually go away. And if it's, like, a shop, or, like, it's dangerous to go alone, take the sword, like, that kind of thing, those ones do despawn, and this one despawns, and that's important. So, basically, I had to do this because the game actually treats a despawning NPC as an enemy that dies. And so when you go into the screen for the first time, you basically are instantly killing an enemy is what the game thinks you're doing. And then after 60 frames, I'm going to advance a little bit more here, it does a side... Like, here, I'll pause it. After the 60 frames pass, it puts you through a timed side warp into the cutscene. So we get this. I'll just play this out. Of course, time passes because this is a long cutscene, and clearly we needed to see the passing of, like, fucking sun here, but I don't know. Okay, so the cutscene played. So what's going to happen when I check the sign the next time? I'm going to be approaching it from the bottom. I can do it from any side, but I'm doing it from the bottom because that's kind of the way I expect most people to do it. So when I go into it this time, we get the boulders for a couple frames, but then this happens, because now that the game is recognizing the enemy on the screen is dead, it triggers the, like, kill all enemies to reveal secret thing, and I have this area set up so that it turns the floor into... it rapidly cycles between a conveyor belt that pushes you down and staircases. And if you don't touch anything, it should work. Yeah, basically, it pushes you into the stairs, and now you just read the sign without getting the cutscene. If you take longer than 60 frames, it'll still play the cutscene, because that's tied to the timed warp, basically. So the idea is basically here, I keep saying the word basically. The idea is I want the player to be forced into a staircase before 60 frames pass, regardless of what input they're holding. So I'm going to do this without freeze framing. Let me walk up into the sign, and not knowing how Zelda Classic works, or knowing that there's a whole setup here, I'm just a normal player. I'm going to hold up, and I'm not going to necessarily let go of the up button for, like, right away, because, like, I have no reason to. And there we go, it works just fine. And I'm going to have to sit through this text every time, by the way. But, so it's like we can do that. We can approach from a different side. Like, so far, everything seems fine. That one took a little bit longer to activate than usual, which I'm not a fan of. Let's try it from above. Okay. Now let's try to break it. The problem is, it's hard for me to do this on command, but it happens sometimes. Sometimes you go into it, and it just doesn't work. Like, I don't know exactly why. Like, I want to get it to happen at least once on screen, but basically the problem is stairs don't automatically warp you in Zelda Classic when you appear on top of them, unless you fidget a bit first, and the amount of fidgeting that you have to do is, as far as I can tell, it's like 8 pixels, because every tile is 16 by 16, and so like you have a grid that you're locked into. Like, here I'm on the grid, here I'm on the grid, here I'm on the half grid. So, like, if I move into the half grid from the full grid, or from the half into the full, then that, like, satisfies the conditions of stepping on stairs. So that's why I have the conveyor belts that kind of help you along. But something to do with either the, like, inconsistent rate that they're changing back and forth, or, like, if you fuck up the user input, like, just enough, I want to make sure that I can actually properly show this off, and I'm upset that it's not working now. But let me actually try and do it from above a few times. I swear this is actually a problem. I'm not just making this up. Can I? Damn it. This is not a good example. I'm gonna off screen until I get it to happen. Oh, there we go. I got it. Okay, so that's actually an easy way to do it. Come in from the side, move for a couple pixels, and then stop. It triggers the cutscene because a full second passes without you warping. So yeah, you can do it easily if you come from the side. I know I've gotten it to happen from other directions too, but like, I don't want that to happen. In this situation, it's not a huge deal because all it does is it just kind of wastes your time for a minute while the cutscene plays again. But there's stuff later in the game where I'd want that to not ever be the case. And so the problem is, like, I can create setups where you go into a screen and there's like a trigger that I step on and it creates a staircase or a conveyor or whatever. Like, it'll either force a tile warp or a side warp. But I want it to always work regardless of player input, and this was the best thing I could come up for with that, or come up with for that. I don't know how to talk. So we're gonna show another idea I had because this is a real good one. I created a test quest specifically for this, so we're gonna pretend that this is the sign, and you're gonna love this one. So we've spawned in the center of 4 docks now. Let me close out of BA3 and open this. This was oh, are we getting a Z-Quest crash? Yes, we are. Cool. Good program. It's almost like this thing was made in fucking 1998. Or, no, I think this version's from like 2003, but still. Okay, so this screen, here's how rafting works. So these are docks. You have to be on a dock to start rafting, and flag 8 is the rafting flag. Now, normally, when you are in a raft path, you don't ever stop rafting until you reach the end of, like, the flag 8s. But here, it's a bit weird, because you're spawning in the middle of these 4 docks, and you're actually rafting in the half grid, which the game is not really programmed to expect. And so it actually breaks the rules a bit, and this is something I only just figured out by playing with this right now. But basically what happens, and for the record, you don't have to raft on water or like anything specific. You can raft through solid walls, like as long as there's a flag 8, the game doesn't care. So, actually I don't know about solid walls, but it can be non-water at least. So you raft, there's conveyor belts that basically make it happen faster, because I want the player to reach the end of the screen as quickly as they can. These things are triggers, and when you step on the trigger, or raft over it rather, it turns all the 16s into staircases, and then it turns the other numbers into more conveyors, so that basically it just kind of speeds it up. Like, you aren't going at full, like the slow speed across these. It doesn't really matter that much. But the idea is, when you visit the screen the first time, no matter what direction you press, you raft off the side, you hit the trigger, and you go off the side of the screen. And that is going to send you back to the first screen again. But now that you come back, the stairs are in the way, and when you hit the stairs, it takes you to this screen instead with the 2 on it. So let's test if that works. We're on screen 1. Now we're on screen 2. Look at that. It works just fine. It's a bit stupid. It's cumbersome. Oh, wait. So here we are, rafting upwards into these stairs. It's working every time. Now let me hold down while I raft. Now I can just bypass it for no reason. What if I just keep tapping up? Okay, now it's working. I was... Oh, yeah, there we go. It just decides to not work sometimes. This fucking program... It's like the most inconsistent thing I've ever seen. I cannot believe this shit. So, those were my 2 highly elaborate, stupid ways to make this sign trick work. There's a much, much easier way that I could do this that I'll probably just use instead of all that, because there's no freaking reason for me to make it this complicated. But basically what I would do with that is you go up to the sign, it's a staircase, it takes you to the intermediate screen, but instead of having all of this bullshit with the money or life screen and having to worry about the rapidly changing staircase conveyor belt crap, I'm just going to have a normal setup. It'll just... I'm trying to think how I'd word this. The staircase would take you to like the edge of the screen, and a conveyor belt would push you off, and it would trigger a side warp, and then you go through the cutscene. But then the idea is after the cutscene ends, it puts you like I think it's like it'll put you here. This tile will actually be a trigger, and then the trigger turns the staircase into a pit, but the trigger also only lasts for a few frames, so like if you're coming onto the screen normally, you wouldn't reach it in time. You can only get it from the cutscene. And then if you go in a second time, now that it's a pit instead of stairs, it ignores the placement flag, it puts you in the right spot, and then you would probably just have to like fidget slightly to activate a staircase. The problem is I want to avoid fidgeting, but I think I'm in a place where I can't really help that. I think fidgeting might be necessary. I'm trying so hard to find a way to not require it, but even with the raft test, you still have to do it. I checked, and you have to hold the direction for like 6 frames consecutively for it to actually work. Unless you use enemies. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't have this in the... oh, good, I just crashed Sequest again. Wait, did I? Nope, okay, it worked. I don't have it in this example, but here, let me draw out what I mean real quick. I made an example where, like... So, like, here's the raft. You go down this way. And I'm going to have the character appear halfway on the raft, halfway on the ground. And then I can have a... I don't know why I'm actually putting this in here, but, like, I can have an enemy appear here. Or actually, I think I would put it... Yeah, I would put it here so you actually spawn in the enemy. If I have that as a bubble, like just a blue bubble, it won't actually damage you or do anything, but it pushes you. And because it spawns there, you're standing here, I can have it force you down as soon as you appear on the screen and like recoil you into the dock. And I tried that, and it works, but only if you're already facing the correct direction. So like, if I wanted to, I could like reverse this thing and have it like so he always pushes you upwards because I'm expecting the player to push up to read the sign. Like, I could do that, but if the player approaches the sign from another direction and then the bubble pushes them into the thing and they're not facing the right way, it's not going to work, and then they have to fidget anyway. So it doesn't solve anything. It's fucking stupid. The best thing I could do is like put an item on the screen that you're forced to carry, like hold above your head, and then have the enemy hit you while you're doing that, because that forces you to be facing down. But I haven't tested that. I don't know if that would even work, and you'd have to have an item, which even if I make it like a miscellaneous item that you don't actually keep, I could just, or have like 1 rupee or something, like it would still play the sound, and I don't want to have that, so it's dumb. I'm probably just gonna do the method that I explained with like the trigger that you warp onto after the cutscene. It's just goddamn dumb stuff. Now we have 2.53. I think this is there's the build. Here's how this one works. So we still have the able to walk between the stairs to activate it. Now when you appear in this one, you actually have the freedom to move around a little bit more than you did in 192, but then you get this, and you're just kind of stuck like that. So, like, if I hold up, I just don't raft at all. Can I still stutter step past the stairs? I hope so, because that was some good shit right there. No, I'm not rafting, so probably not. Oh, okay. Good. I'm glad. And let's try going down. No, okay, rafting down gets you stuck. And left or right? Yeah, okay. So, good program, basically.